Well, the city council is obviously the blind leading the blind, and today I'm going to focus on some of those items that are recent that you're going to want to know about. It's time for some straight talk, McClendon and Chisholm. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen. This is the Bunker Bob Show. Yes, and good afternoon on this Monday morning. It is good to have you back with me today, and today I'm focused on some idiocracy is the best way I can describe it, because that's what's happening in our city today, is some things that shouldn't happen but do. And that's why our city is literally the blind leading the blind in so many different ways. I'm going to focus some of the time on the violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. I want to start there, actually, and I want to reiterate or recap what I talked about in the last show, because there is some question about the law as to whether or not the city council actually violated the law when appointing Nathan Hodges to fulfill Herman Larkin's unexpired term of office after he has left office and moved out of town and out of the state of Texas. So, bottom line, here is the full scope of the entire part of the agenda where the city council considered nominees. And remember, there were 4 people who submitted their names. The mayor of McClendon Chisholm, Keith Short, asked citizens if they were interested to submit their names and to submit an interest, that they were interested in this. And so you got 4 people, and I did open records requests. You can watch the last show. You can see who they are. You can see their requests. And despite that, this is what happened.
Moving on to 6.4, discussion and action regarding recommendation by the mayor to appoint Nathan Hodges to fill council member place 2's vacancy and serve until the next municipal election. My recommendation to council is to appoint Mr. Hodges to fulfill the rest of Mr. Larkin's term. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept your recommendation, I guess, as
Yes.
appointing Mr. Hodges to fill council place 2.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion on that? If not, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right. Show that unanimous.
So this is a city council seat that is hotly contested, and the time of deliberation that took place was 0. And as I talked about on the last show, there was absolutely no discussion about it. Never once was the name of Nathan Hodges ever submitted before Friday, before this last Tuesday's meeting, city council meeting, which basically ensured that the city council could not have deliberated this matter unless they were doing it behind closed doors, which is obviously what happened. However, William Dahl, Slick Willie as I like to call him, Slick Willie Dahl has another point of view on this, and on his little Facebook page, he did a video blog and updated citizens on the meeting based on his perspective. And here's what he said about the nomination and the appointment of Mr. Hodges. Watch this.
But I don't know of any of the other nominations. It wasn't that type of process. It was a mayoral appointment and a council vote.
Yeah, so that is the question that I was given last week. Someone asked and looked and asked me to look at Texas state law, chapter 22 of local government code. And so my understanding was based upon this very item. Now, understand the city of McLennan-Chisholm is a general law type A city, which means that it's governed by overwhelmingly by the regulations of the state, unlike home rule cities, which are Rockwall, Fade, Royce City, all the surrounding cities around us. They're home rule. We are general law type A city. So the question was posed: isn't it possible that it doesn't state law in chapter 22 of the local government code, doesn't it actually say that this is okay, that this is the way it's supposed to be done, where the mayor of the city will make the appointment, and then the council will approve it? Well, let's look at it for ourselves, and let's see what it says in the local government code. It says, filling vacancy on governing body or in the other municipal offices. A, if for any reason a single vacancy exists on the governing body of the municipality, a majority of the remaining members, excluding the mayor, may fill the vacancy by appointment. And that's the right of the city to do that. So why is there confusion? Why do some people believe that there's the possibility of an appointment to be made? Well, it basically comes at another point in this, where it's at the bottom of this section, where it says, if a vacancy exists in any other municipal office, the mayor or acting mayor shall appoint a person to fill the vacancy, subject to the confirmation of the governing body. So the question that was posed to me is that talking about the second part, that the second highlighted part, is that talking about the appointment of city council or other seats? And the answer is very obvious. If you read the first portion of it, it states pretty clearly that if for any reason a single vacancy exists on the governing body of the municipality, the item E states, if a vacancy exists in any other municipal office, that's when the mayor gets to appoint with the confirmation, I should say, of the city council. So when Mr. Dahl said, well, that's not how it works, the mayor appoints and the council basically confirms, that is either Mr. Dahl's incompetence, or this is his having to cover his tail end, because what occurred here is clearly a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act, fundamentally because no discussion was had during the meeting. And this was clearly the city council working behind the scenes to talk about Nathan Hodges. And by the way, Nathan Hodges is the one person who never submitted any interest in this position. So to be clear, I made an open records request to the city asking for any information for anyone who submitted interest in this position to either the mayor, the city council, or the city. I got back 4 emails from the city administrator, and those 4 emails, none of them was Nathan Hodges one of the 4. So how did that happen? Especially for citizens, for members of the council who really didn't know Nathan. In fact, Councilmember Dahl even talks about on his blog that after the meeting was over, he finally got a chance to talk to Nathan Hodges and meet him. This is, without a doubt, a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. This is something that obviously that so many accused me and the city council of doing, which of course because we never violated the Texas Open Meetings Act, there was no evidence to show that we ever did. Why? Because we never did. We were open and transparent, unlike this city council. So going along those lines, I think it's a good idea. Let's just talk about ethics. And I want to highlight an ethical dilemma that is facing the City Council in regard to the Planning and Zoning Commission, because the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission has, in my understanding of this ordinance, violated it in an overwhelming way. Now, first of all, what does the ordinance say, and what ordinance am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about McLennan-Chisholm Code of Ordinance Section 102.155. And this code of this ordinance section is focused on conflicts of interest. And if you see on this, at the bottom of this, it states that no member of the City Planning and Zoning Commission shall participate in or vote on any land use matter in which such officer has a substantial interest in any real property within 200 feet of the real property that is the subject of the land use matter. For purpose of this section, land use matter shall mean zoning, plat approval, site plan, or other development approvals or permits, variances, or exceptions. So, does this apply to the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mrs. Swalge? Well, here is a map of the plat in question. It's in red. This plat is Rossini Vineyards, and Rossini Vineyards has a house that they rent out, and they're planning to plant a vineyard and have wine tastings, all sorts of things that make McLennan-Chisholm unique. The kind of business that if we invited businesses in, this is the kind of business that we should pine for, not the Dollar Generals that just got pushed away at the Board of Adjustment meeting for asking for a variance to increase the size of their building. No, this is the kind of business that we want. The Rossinis, a wonderful couple that live just right outside of our city limits, are putting in this vineyard. Well, some of the neighbors, not all of them, but some of the neighbors are fit to be tied about this. And one of those neighbors just happens to be the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission just so happens to live within 200 feet of the proposed plat. In fact, she lives right next to it. This is what's called a conflict of interest. She's an interested party because her land value, in her opinion, is going to be impacted by this vineyard. And so, this is why when I was mayor, one of the things when I first got on city council, one of the first things that we did was we adopted a code of ethics. And this is one of the reasons why we adopted a code of ethics, because a code of ethics ensures that a conflict of interest that exists would protect the parties, essentially protect the citizens of McLennan-Chisholm over interested parties. Now, one of the things that should also be noted is that Mrs. Swalge's, the chairman's husband, sent out a letter to neighbors, sent a letter to members of city council. We have copies. I've got copies of these letters. I'll try to post them on this YouTube channel so you can read them for yourselves. But these are clearly objecting to this vineyard and trying to stir up anger and hatred toward this business. And yet here is the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. She is what they're talking about. I'm just going to let you see her in action.
I mean, I don't know, sitting in this chair, I don't know how much I should say. So it has been a terrible summer. It has been a problem all summer. And I do know the police have been called more than once, because I know I have called them more than once. And Sheriff. And I agree, maybe we should have called you. I don't, again, sitting here as chair, I don't feel like I should get too into this, and maybe we should talk after. But
No, I would love to do that. I would love to do that.
I will tell you just, and this is where I come from and where I come from in my heart, I've had to take my 5- and 6-year-old inside because I felt like what they were hearing in our backyard was inappropriate.
Okay.
And that I cannot live next
Right.
to. And that is where I come from. But again, I think that's something that we just need to deal with.
Exactly.
So clearly, there is a very personal issue going on, and I want to make clear that many of the accusations that are being brought against the Rossinis were baseless. In fact, I did an open records request with the Sheriff's Department, and only one call had been made to the Sheriff's Department. The fact is, the Rossinis did contact and gave neighbors, reached out to neighbors to let them know that if they had people staying at their bed and breakfast that were causing trouble. And the issue that she's talking about, is my understanding, is that it was a wedding party. And bottom line, folks, if you believe in the right of property ownership, if it's my home and I live there, or if I rent it out, I could have a party. If I lived there, I could have a big party and there's not a thing they could do about it. The fact is that Councilmember Dahl, before he was elected, he threw a Diwali party. I can't say that his family's Hindu, because apparently saying that is racist to call him Hindu. But anyway, he accuses me of racism because I'm highlighting the fact that they had a Diwali celebration, which is a Hindu faith, and it is kind of obvious that his wife and in-laws appear to be of that persuasion. And if it's wrong, and there's what still gets me, is that he still hasn't said whether or not that's true. It's just racist to do that. But Mr. Diwali Dahl, Mr. Dahl, Slick Willie Dahl, shot off fireworks. This is in November, after people were asleep. This massive fireworks display. You know what? We couldn't do a dang thing about it. Why? Because he has a right to do what he wants to on his own property. Now, does it mean that he has to be a jerk? The fact that he doesn't care about his neighbors? I mean, there's a problem there. That's different from what the Rossinis did. See, unlike Mr. Dahl, he didn't tell anybody he was doing it. He didn't invite neighbors. He just threw this massive party and shot off these massive fireworks, and there wasn't a thing we could do about it. And if the Rossinis have a wedding party on this property, you know, there's nothing that the neighbors can do about it. They're well within their rights to have these parties. But what did the Rossinis do? You know what they've done? First of all, they have said no more parties. Why? Because they want to be good neighbors. They have said, here is our number. Call us if you have any problems. You know what? A neighbor called them, said, hey, you're the people at your party, they're being outrageous. They went and took care of it. The sheriff also came. But the point is, they want to be good neighbors, unlike Slick Willie Dahl. He doesn't care about his neighbors, but the Rossinis do. Now, the fact is, no one wants to live next to people who are inconsiderate. But this matter before the Planning and Zoning Commission had nothing whatsoever to do with any noise that they are creating or who they're renting it out to or anything like that. If you don't believe me, here, just watch this and listen to the city planner.
One thing I'd like to note is that this is not a zoning item, and so there really should be limited or no discussion on the actual use of the property. Plats, basically, the state of Texas says that plats have to be approved if they meet zoning and subdivision regulations. And so we found this plat to meet the zoning and subdivision regulations, and that it must be approved by the commission, and it, you know, basically the use and everything and zoning that was discussed prior to and approved by the council really shouldn't be part of the discussion today. And so the discussion should be limited to the lot configuration, right-of-way dedication, utility easements, access easements, things that have to do not with the actual use and the zoning of the property.
And as you listen to Ms. Swalji talk about this issue, she brought in things that were completely unrelated. Here's the point. Ms. Swalji had no business being on that Planning and Zoning Commission when the Rossinis brought this matter before the P&Z. Her responsibility, her legal and ethical responsibility was to recuse herself. And in the state of Texas, recusal means not just to not participate, but to actually step down from the dais. According to the Texas Attorney General, the courts there is case law that establishes that not only should you step down from the dais, you should also remove yourself from the room to ensure that there's no undue influence over other members. Not only did she officiate the meeting, but she also contributed to the disharmony, the demonization against a couple who was trying to bring a business to the city of McClendon-Chisholm. This is the blind leading the blind. And as I talk about that, I also want to highlight another decision that was made by the city council, and that is to appoint someone to serve on the investment committee. And I'll just let you see what they did.
So have a recommendation of which one of you would like to be on the investment committee?
Can't we push this to after the other things that we're going to do?
Yeah. Right.
Well, is it a motion? I'll make a motion or a nomination.
Okay.
I haven't spoken to you, but I'll nominate William Dahl.
Okay. We have William Dahl nominated. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You can't vote for yourself.
But it's good to hear you want to. It's good to know you want to. Yeah.
I'm glad you're voting, but you can't vote for yourself. All right.
Oh boy, I tell you what, a little comedic humor. Did you know you had a comedian on the council? Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, the guy is a complete moron. But no, he's not. Stop saying things like that. This guy meant to do that. Just listen to what he says.
Now, one of the things that happened during that is when you watch the video and watch the vote, you'll notice that everybody else voted, and so did I. And I voted on it as well. Did that almost for a little bit of some comic relief.
Yeah, a little comic relief. Here you go. Well, let's try that. Let's try that again. Yeah, that was funny. Oh my goodness. I tell you what, that Slick Willie, he is one funny dude. Did you hear what Slick Willie did? You got to tell your friends, go watch that. That is hilarious. Oh my goodness. Well, so Slick Willie's on the investment committee. What is the investment committee and what exactly does that mean? Well, don't worry, because Slick Willie's going to tell you. Watch this.
The 6.7 was appointment of a member of the council to serve on the investment committee, requested by Lisa. So what the investment committee does is the investment committee pretty much goes over our city's books and looks out over our investment portfolio to make sure everything's going smoothly, make sure that we're making the right decisions in that. And typically it involves a council member 2 to 3 meetings a year to go over everything. And now you're going to be going over everything with the city administrator. You're going to be going over everything with not only our accountant, but you're going to be going over it as well as with with our legal team and a couple other people. Now,
okay. Again, when I talk about the blind leading the blind, This is kind of what I'm talking about. The fact is, Mr. Dahl really doesn't understand the nature of the role of the investment committee. So let's just for the sake of your benefit and mine, because Mr. Dahl doesn't watch this show, I can tell you that for sure, because he continues to say things that he has constant foot and mouth disease, is what I should say. He says things that are completely moronic for someone who is supposed to be informed about the process and what's going on in our city. But as it relates to the city and what this committee is, this is basically what the committee is. The investment committee will consist of one council member, city administrator, city secretary or treasurer, and an outside investment advisor. And note that the investment advisor is a non-voting member. And when needed, the city attorney will give some advice too. Now, think about this. This is you've got the city secretary and the city administrator. That's one person. The city secretary and city administrator, that's one person, Lisa Palomba. And then you have a member of city council, and that's Slick Willie. What happens if they disagree? I'm just curious what will happen, because ultimately Slick Willie is going to be, they're going to end in a tie. So this is what's interesting about this point, or one of the things in the scope, or excuse me, in who is on this. But I want to also highlight the scope of their powers. And so when you look at that, the scope of their powers is focused on all financial assets. Basically, what they're focusing on is the investment policy applies to the investment activities of the city. All financial assets of all funds, including the general fund and any other accounts, unless explicitly excluded by this policy's guidelines, are included. Now, who are we talking about here? Are we talking about the investment committee? No. Actually, this is not the scope of authority of the investment committee. This is the scope of authority of the city investment officer. Well, who's the city investment officer? Well, that's real simple. That's, again, going back, that's Lisa Palomba. You see, the city administrator and city secretary are designated as the investment officers of the city and are responsible for investment management decisions and activities. So Mr. Dahl's engagement in this very prestigious position is pretty much inconsequential. Now, that's just one of the things that I find humorous about Mr. Dahl's points that he's making about this position on this committee. Here's what he says about oversight. Listen to this.
The people. Now, one of the things that I didn't realize about this position was the fact that didn't have any citizen oversight. It's an internal committee based on the internal finances of the city. Just like most committees, I thought most of the committees that we have in the city, we bring the public in for this. This is one of those committees that it's a strictly internal. I thought there might be some citizen oversight in it, but it turns out there isn't. Not necessarily a bad thing, not necessarily a good thing, just one of those unique features about it. It's about internal investments in the city. So Mr. Bloom brought me up as an appointment to serve on it. The rest of the council agreed, and they voted on it to make me to appoint me member of the council, me the member of the council to serve on the investment committee.
Yeah, so that is that's the thing. There's no citizen accountability, right? There's no citizen oversight. The problem is there has been citizen oversight. When I was on city council, I created something called the Audit Review Committee. This enabled citizens to be an independent of the city council. And their job is to work with the accountants, to work with, to review the audit of the city, and to report back to the city and to the citizens about what has happened and what is happening within our city. And that's one of the most important things, in my opinion, about transparent government, is that a city government, if it really wants to be transparent, it really should focus on bringing citizens in and opening the books on what's happening within the city. But since I've left office, do you know how many times the Audit Review Committee has met? It hasn't. In fact, there is no Audit Review Committee anymore, even though it is required by ordinance. This city council, this mayor and city council have absolutely, as I continue to say again and again, this city council has no desire whatsoever to be open and transparent. Which brings me to tomorrow night's meeting, which is a special meeting. And its focus, the whole focus of the meeting, is on the budget. Now, I want to let you in on something. When they held an 8-hour meeting, an all-day meeting, just a few weeks ago, it was another special meeting. They called it a retreat, actually. They did not have cameras rolling. They did not record it in any way, shape, manner, or form, except through the official minutes, which is the bare minimum that a city has to meet. Or don't forget, folks, the city of McLennan-Chisholm has purchased a $6,000 video system so that these kinds of meetings from Planning and Zoning, Board of Adjustment, and City Council can be broadcast live and recorded so that you as citizens can know what's going on. Tomorrow night's meeting is, in my opinion, a pretty important one. It is, after all, reviewing the budget and what's going on with the budget. So my question is, are they going to record it? Is this going to be something that we're going to be able to see? I guess time will tell, and we're going to find out tomorrow whether or not that happens. And I sure hope that it does, because unless it does, we're going to probably be in the dark again about what's really happening in our city. So make no mistake, we might just have to do our own little broadcast tomorrow night. We'll see. May happen. I guess time will tell. But if I were you, I might just keep an eye out for this show, and don't forget to subscribe, because when you subscribe, then you get the opportunity to be notified whenever something, whenever I'm about to make a show, whenever I'm about to broadcast live, might be something you may want to focus on. So I appreciate you being with me today, and I appreciate you giving me your time and your attention, and I hope this information has been helpful. I hope that one day we can again restore our city government, that we can make McLennan-Chisholm great again, but it's certainly not going to be with this mayor or this city council who likes to do things behind the scene. Don't forget that there's other information that you can get on this YouTube channel, so you can see the other shows that I've talked about, many of the things in more details that I've kind of hinted around in this show. So I don't believe that, I'm pretty sure I will not be doing another show this week. I have a business thing going on for the rest of the week. However, you may want to watch for a special broadcast tomorrow. I don't know. It may be something you may be interested in. So until I see you again, which I'm sure will be next Monday, I hope that you have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again. Have a great day.